Hi, gang, it's Adam.
And Patrick.
Coming up on today's episode, we welcome back Chris from Wishful Thinking to discuss his visit to Disneyland Paris, including the launch of the resort's paid Fast Pass service Premier Access, and what you need to know to make a trip to DLP a reality. As always, we cover the latest Disney news and close out the show with some Quick D. All that and more on today's episode of Gays Do the D.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Patrick Petite Baguette Kazaki.
Oh, what did you call me? Adam Palm Frites Hummel.
I love some pommes frites.
Don't you just want those right now?
Pommes frites with my coffee?
Just some garlic fries with coffee. Delish.
Sounds fantastic. Patrick, we are becoming the most international podcast I know.
We're transatlantic, Adam.
Absolutely. We've got us covering the States. We've got our friend Chris from Wishful Thinking coming on this very episode over in Paris, France.
Paris, France. And next week, we have a guest all the way from the UK as well.
Yes. And why, Patrick? Why do we have a guest coming on from the UK?
Well, I'll tell you, Adam, after I ask you, how the heck are you?
Oh, do we really need to do this?
We don't, but we should. We should.
Okay. Well, I feel great, Patrick. My shirt arrived.
Oh, see, that's why I ask. That's why I ask these questions, because now we have the tea. Your shirt arrived, and now you have the tea, literally.
I have the literal tea. I do have some beef with our Tweedles, though, because not one Tweedle reached out with their condolences over my lost T-shirt.
There wasn't like an online campaign to find your shirt.
Who are you people? Where's your etiquette? Where's your class?
I wanted there to be, you know that documentary, Don't F with Cats? I wanted that to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad everything worked out in the end for you, Adam.
But did not work out for our Tweedles because you all were not raised right.
Fair enough. Shame on all of you Tweedles, but we love you.
All right, Patrick, turning the spotlight to you just where it should be. How are you doing?
I am good, Adam. I am good. I got an early morning run in. I am feeling ready for the day. I'm going to start packing my suitcases soon. I'm very excited.
Okay, can we move on now?
We can move on. I teased a little bit more so we can move on.
Patrick, why are you packing your suitcases?
I'm so glad you asked randomly, Adam. I'm so glad you asked out of the blue. I am, fingers crossed, going to be in Disney World next weekend, tentatively. Who knows? Anything can change at the drop of a hat.
I have very graciously funded Patrick's trip, and I'm sending him down as a canary in a coal mine to test the situation down there. As we all know, things are not great right now in Florida.
They're not great. You want me to breathe in those airs before you do.
That's right. I want to see how you respond to it, and then I'll decide if I go down for the 50th.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I am hesitant, in all honesty. Like, Florida's a little bit of a mess right now. A lot of the southern states are a little bit of a mess right now. So I'm not excited about that part of it. But I'm going to land. I'm going to get in the first car I see. Whoever's in it, I don't know. I'm going to kick them out of it. And I'm hightailing it into the Disney bubble where I will feel safe and sound once I'm there.
That's right. But just as an added kind of exploration, shall we call it, if you could just lick random things around the park, just to really get in there and see how things are shaken out.
Absolutely. I'll bring my pH kit with me as well, just to test the levels of everything, the acidity and the base and everything.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
It's what I do. It's what I do for our listeners and for you, Adam.
Well, Patrick, we are all so excited for your trip, and we're very excited to hear your trip report, which will occur not in next week's episode, but in the following week's episode, because in next week's episode, Patrick, we have a very special guest who you already teased. Tell me about it.
That's right. We have Ben from the Once Upon a Scream podcast joining us for a very special episode of Walt Quizney.
Ooh, it's a Walt Quizney episode, folks. You know what that means? It means I get my supple ass handed to me by not being able to answer Disney questions that really anyone should know.
Listen, here's a teaser for all of our Tweedles out there. You did quite well. You did better than I expected, and I try very hard to push you in the mud every single time, and you valiantly got up out of the mud and answered at least 2 questions correct.
Those episodes are always so much fun, but I gotta say, the last 2 times I've been the competitor, I've been competing against Brits, Patrick, and I don't want to start any conspiracies, but I seriously think there are some major kind of latent, lingering hang-ups over our Declaration of Independence from England.
That's fair. Absolutely. Both have been amazing contestants, so knowledgeable in their selected topics for Walt Disney. And we once again learned that Adam has never seen a Disney movie.
What is the topic for next week's Walt Disney?
Ooh, should we tell everybody?
Yeah, I think so.
Why ever not? Disney villains will be the topic, which is very appropriate for Ben. As I said, he's from the Once Upon a Scream podcast, which is a mashup of Disney and horror films.
Very brave of you and he to choose that topic, because villains not so popular among the Disney community, but we'll see how it goes.
That's right. If ever there was a topic that Disney fans are just meh on, it's Disney villains. That's for sure.
That's right. And I guess that officially kicks off the spooky season then, right here on this podcast, because we are leaning into villainry in August.
Absolutely. Well, we are in line with Disney because they started Halloween on August 10th this year.
So everyone, in next week's episode, be sure to check that out. It is so fun. Ben is a delight.
Such a delight. So that's a future episode, Adam. Let's go to the past, shall we?
You know, if I was at all invested in this podcast, I would have some kind of sound effect like taking us into the past. But who has the time?
No one has the time nor the budget.
So, Tweedles, if you recall in last week's episode, our feature segment was Do Over Disney, a brand new segment that we premiered in which Patrick and I reimagined some Disney attractions and experiences, kind of gave them a little bit of an upgrade, didn't we?
We did. We gave some attractions and hotels and whatnot in the Disney parks a little bit of a facelift based on our imaginations.
That's right. So if you haven't checked out that episode yet, be sure to go back 1 week and check it out. But we did have some Tweedles write in with their thoughts, their own do-overs, did we not, Patrick?
We did indeed. We had Toby writing into us from Instagram at TTG. Toby says, my do-over Disney would be the ride Smuggler's Run. Yeah, Tobes. Absolutely. Smuggler's Run, in my opinion as well, needs a redo. It's a very new ride, but it's a very wrong ride as well.
It's an okay ride. It just does not speak to, I think, a certain generation of Star Wars fan, perhaps. And we know Toby, we should say. So we know he's of a certain generation and kind of more of the classic Star Wars stories.
Also, it's just a garbage ride.
Okay, wow. Those are big words for someone who's about to go down to Walt Disney World and could get beat up in the parks for saying things like that.
That's not why I'm getting beat up in the parks, Adam.
We also heard from Auntie Myrna, who you can find on Instagram at salad. And we should say, Patrick, Auntie Myrna, newly engaged.
Yes, indeed. Congratulations. I've seen pictures. I've been in conversations. I saw a few dress options. Very excited for her.
Can't wait for our invitations to the wedding. Auntie Myrna says, I absolutely loved your latest podcast. You lads are such a treat. We are, Patrick, aren't we?
Yes, indeed we are.
She goes on to say, when Patrick spoke of adding more Muppets and creating a Swedish chef restaurant, Chef's Kiss, I was doing a training run and said out loud, yes, Patrick, and scared some teenagers on their bikes. I would be remiss not to add that there absolutely needs to be beaker cocktails. I'm almost envisioning a Rainforest Cafe style where calamity ensues every 15 minutes. You could also take from Trader Sam's Grog Grotto and have a fun saying you yell when you receive your beaker cocktail. Food for thought, pun very much intended. You both make the sun shinier. Always be you and keep us smiling. XOXO Auntie Myrns.
Love this. You know what? I'm a little angry, though. I'm a little angry that I did not think of beaker cocktails. That is genius.
A perfect addition to your idea, Patrick. They could arrive in little test tubes. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Shots, everybody.
Muppet shots.
Or the vaccine. I'm talking about the vaccine, actually. Shots, everybody. Moving on, we have Chris, incidentally, from Wishful Thinking. We should just have Chris read it to us, but he's not here with us yet, but he will be on the program later. Chris says, can't wait to listen, but ready to jump in now and say that the Liberty Bell riverboat needs a tremendous rethink where the unruly passengers and a wayward captain doom her for trouble. Who needs a 20-minute yawner around a canal? I want an onboard fire to break out after a drunken bottle-smashing bar fight, a hair-raising, yes, you may get wet, careening over an unexpected waterfall, and a madcap chase from a portly sheriff after bandits hop on board with stolen diamonds from the Diamond Horseshoe Saloon. Chris, I feel like you were on something when you wrote this. It's very specific, as though it was maybe a fever dream you had.
Fingers crossed he's on something on this episode, because that would get some clicks.
Indeed it would. That would be really fun. That's a major overhaul. I feel like we would need to redo all of Walt Disney World to make that happen, but that sounds like an enticing idea.
Very interesting that he brings up the riverboat, because in a news story you're going to be talking about in a bit, Patrick, Melissa Valaquette, who is the vice president of Magic Kingdom, recently appeared on a podcast, and she was talking about the Tiana show that used to be on that riverboat and kind of what an overhaul the riverboat needed, and there really wasn't the infrastructure there, so it would really take a lot to get Chris's dream to come to fruition, but I'm for it.
I'm for it as well. It is a classic ride, so it's hard to get rid of that or change it too much because people are so attached to it, really. But you know what? Let's do it. Why ever not?
Yeah, I mean, I basically said tear down Space Mountain. So.
You did indeed, and people gasped.
Well, thank you, Toby, Auntie Myrna, and Chris for your feedback on last week's episode. We are so grateful, and we will have future Do-Over Disney segments coming. So again, if any of you tweet us have any ideas for themes or attractions or experiences you want us to cover, send them our way.
Indeed. Please do that. Well, let's just stay in the past for a little bit, shall we, Adam, and head on into This Week in Disney History?
Yes, please.
Great. No one asked, but here it is. Adam, opening the vault to This Week in Disney History, 40 years ago, on August 17th, 1981, a Wedway people mover opened at the Houston International Airport in Houston, Texas. The system was constructed by Disney's Community Transportation Services, and it would be the first use of a Disney system outside of the theme parks.
Very interesting. And something we've seen repeatedly since, right, is the idea that Disney develops something, innovates something, and then the world catches on to how truly useful it is and implements it in their cities.
Indeed. Disney is the way of the future, everybody, the way of the future. Moving on, 66 years ago, on August 16th, 1955, the Dumbo the Flying Elephant attraction in Disneyland would finally open 1 month after the park itself opened. Dumbo was intended to be an opening day attraction, but there were many delays and design flaws in the ride vehicles that prevented them from being operational until August. In fact, the original Dumbo ride vehicles had hinged ears that were supposed to make the ears flap, which didn't end up working. Today, it remains one of the most popular attractions, and it is the only attraction that can be found in all 6 Disney parks around the world.
So many people died in the production of that attraction.
Not true. Dumbo is not haunted. But wouldn't that be an excellent story?
Amazing.
Moving on, our last item in This Week in Disney History. 106 years ago, Adam, on August 16th, 1915, actress Gloria Blondell was born in New York City. Blondell was a television and film actress, having appeared in an episode of I Love Lucy and in the movie Accidents Will Happen with Ronald Reagan. She is also, notably, though not very well known, as the very first woman to voice Daisy Duck. Originally voiced by Clarence Nash, Gloria Blondell took over the role and gave Daisy a more human-like voice in 1945 with the short Donald's Crime. She voiced Daisy until 1947. Fun fact, Daisy has been voiced by roughly a dozen different people over the years, with Tress MacNeille as the current voice, but it was Gloria Blondell who was the very first female to voice her.
Thank you so much, Gloria.
She was the one who gave Daisy sort of that sassy take.
That sassy take that we've all come to know and love. And I really think the gays, more than any other group, have embraced Daisy as their kind of sass queen.
It's true. And Daisy has indeed embraced the gays in return.
She's at so many charity events, helping out. She really does support our community.
That's right. She gives a duck about us, you know?
Oh, Patrick.
Hey-o. Well, that concludes this week in Disney history.
Fantastic, as always, Patrick. And before we head into the Disney news, we just want everyone to know that we have a merch sale coming up this week. It'll run this Wednesday, August 18th, through this Saturday, July 21st. And items in our store will be up to 35% off. That means $13 tees, $20 phone cases, $30 hoodies, and more.
I love and more. It's my favorite item.
We really over-ordered on and more, so if you could order some and more, we'd really appreciate it.
It's true. We have piles and piles of and more. Now, if you didn't know, 100% of the proceeds that Gays Do the D receives from these online sales goes to a different nonprofit organization every quarter. And right now, we are donating to the Trans Lifeline. Trans Lifeline is a trans-led organization that connects trans people to the community, support, and resources they need to survive and thrive.
That's right. Those who call speak to a trans or non-binary peer operator with full anonymity and confidentiality. Callers are also guaranteed no non-consensual active rescue. That means that the person that you're speaking to will not call 911, emergency services, or law enforcement without your consent.
If you need to reach out to the Trans Lifeline in the United States, you can call 877-565-8860. And if you are in Canada, you can dial 877-330-6366. To learn more or to donate directly to the Trans Lifeline, go to translifeline.org. Or, as we said, if you want to get a piece of GDTD merch, we will be donating all of the proceeds we receive directly to the Trans Lifeline.
I was just in the store this week, Patrick, messing around with some things, and there are some cute new couture fashions that people might want to consider buying.
Ooh, speak about one of them, Adam.
Well, my new favorite item, and I will absolutely be ordering this for our trip to the 50th, is our logo, but just the monogram version spelling out GDTD, repeating down a t-shirt in a rainbow color gradient.
Ooh, a cascade of GDTD.
You could not have said that more perfectly, a cascade of GDTD. And I should say, too, it's not just fashion, people. I know you think that our merch store is just fashion, but it's not. It's home goods. It's laptop cases, it's stickers, buttons, magnets.
Just get a throw pillow. Just get a sensible throw pillow for your couch.
Can you believe that we even have throw pillows?
I believe you have one, Adam.
I do believe I have one. It was gifted to me by someone. I can't remember who. Just kidding. It was Patrick.
You need a new one, though, because you need the new logo on it.
Well, mine has the new logo. There's several variations. Patrick, we can't be tied down to just one look for our logo.
It's true. We need several looks.
So head on over to gaysdothed.com/merch to check out all of the items in our merch store. And again, as Patrick pointed out, you do not need to purchase merch to donate. You can also donate directly at translifeline.org.
True story. And Adam, I'm feeling generous today, so I am going to donate some news stories to all of our Tweedles.
They have absolutely no value, Patrick.
That's right. I will not be getting a tax write-off for these donations.
Last Thursday, August 12th, the Walt Disney Company held its Q3 2021 earnings webcast. And per usual, we got not only a peek into the company's financial well-being, but also updates on some highly anticipated projects in the pipeline. Let's cover the highlights, shall we, Patrick?
Yas, Queen, please.
Overall revenue for the third quarter came in at $17.02 billion. By the way, that's the same revenue for GDTD in the third quarter.
It really is.
Yeah. And that $17.02 billion that Disney earned is slightly above industry estimates of $16.76 billion. Disney Parks, Experiences, and Products also saw its first profitable quarter since the pandemic's start, with revenue reaching $4.3 billion as compared to the $1.1 billion for the third quarter in 2020. Obviously, the increase is related to all domestic and international Disney parks being reopened for a portion of the quarter. Moving on to Disney Plus exceeded its subscriber expectation of 112.8 million by ending the quarter at over 116 million subscribers worldwide, with direct-to-consumer remaining the company's top priority. In fact, CEO Bob Chapek announced the first annual Disney Plus Day, which will be held on November 12th, marking the 2-year anniversary of the launch of Disney Plus in the US, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the Netherlands. Disney Plus Day will be a cross-promotional event highlighting the announcement of new projects and release dates of several films and series coming to the streaming service. And finally, we were given an update, sort of, on the upcoming launch of Disney Genie. Chapek stated, quote, "The goal of this user-friendly app is to create a better, more personalized and customized experience for guests, putting them in control and providing even greater flexibility and choice. They will be able to spend less time waiting in line and figuring out what attractions and dining options are available, and more time having fun," end quote. Disney Genie is expected to launch shortly after Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary. To learn more about the Q3 2021 earnings webcast and read the earnings report, and who doesn't want to read that earnings report, visit thewaltdisneycompany.com.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading the report as you were doing that, so I didn't hear a word you said.
You were so focused on those numbers.
As per usual. Disney Genie. Okay, they're trying to keep that ball in the air and giving us no information about that ball.
What I can decipher from Chapek's quote is that more time having fun means no fast pass, but a paid fast pass service.
I have a feeling it's inevitable, is my guess, that we are going to get a paid FastPass situation through the Disney Genie app, but they are not saying as much at all. They're being very hush-hush about it.
Very hush-hush. I guess that means we'll just have to wait to see what wishes the Genie app will deliver, Patrick.
Let's hope it's a Disney Genie and not a Disney Meanie, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
You really need this vacation.
I do. Oh, man, I do. The 3-month holiday of Halloween has officially begun at Disney, and we have more details and new events to announce. Starting on the West Coast, Adam, Disney... Tweedles, if you could see Adam's face right now, it's very disappointed.
No, that one got me. I liked it.
Thank you so much. Disney California Adventure has added 2 add-on options for the Oogie Boogie Bash. For dinner, you can reserve the Wine Country Trattoria Oogie Boogie Bash Parade Dining, which includes a 3-course meal and a reserved standing viewing area for the frightfully fun parade later that evening. This dining package is available for seatings from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Something to note, this is not a separate reservation. So, to take advantage of this, you will need to make a regular dining reservation during that time frame on the night you are attending the party. And when you arrive, let the host know that you would like to upgrade to the Oogie Boogie Bash package. Meals will be $55 for adults and $40 for children 3 to 9. Walk-ins will be accepted if there are available tables. The second option is the Sonoma Terrace Oogie Boogie Bash Dessert Party. This option will run you $84 per person regardless of age and will require advance reservations specifically for this party. With this option, you will get reserved outdoor seating along the parade route up to 30 minutes prior to the parade. You will also have a wide selection of Halloween desserts and beverages during and before the parade. As I said, reservations are required and can be made now on the Disneyland website by searching Oogie Boogie Bash. Moving over to the, wait for it, Adam, East Coast, Minnie's Halloween Dine officially returns to Hollywood and Vine in Hollywood Studios. Minnie and her friends will be decked out in their Halloween costumes and roaming the restaurant for both lunch and dinner. As with all character experiences right now, you can take all the photos your heart desires, but this is a no-touch character experience. Adam always giggles at that. Minnie's Halloween Dine will take place through November 3rd, and reservations are highly encouraged. Over at the Magic Kingdom, we now know the details of what guests attending the Disney After Hours Boo Bash can expect. I still hate that title. As we reported before, the separately ticketed event begins at either 9 p.m. or 9:30 p.m., depending on the night, and goes until 12 a.m. or 12:30 a.m. Guests may enter Magic Kingdom starting at 7 p.m. If you are already in the park prior to 7 p.m., you can pick up your wristband and event map at either Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor in Tomorrowland or Tortuga Tavern in Adventureland. Guests arriving at 7 p.m. or later will get their wristband and map at the park entrance. For entertainment, assuming the event begins at 9:30, you can dance the night away at the Tomorrowland DJ dance party as soon as the night begins until 12:30 a.m. Now, pull all of these times back by 30 minutes if your event starts at 9 p.m. At 9:55 and 11:25, you can catch Mickey's Happy Halloween Cavalcade. At 10:30 and 11:45, you'll see Gaston's Guns and Buns at the Disney Villains Halloween Cavalcade. At 10:40 and 11:55, you can pick out a big Oogie Boogie in Jack's Nightmare Cavalcade. And at 10:50 and 12:05, you can do fireball shots at Maleficent's Fiery Prowl. All of these cavalcades will start in Frontierland and end on Main Street. The Cadaver Dans will perform each night in Frontierland at 9:40, 10:20, 11:05, and 12:10. For character sightings, Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Tigger, and Eeyore will be in their Halloween outfits outside of the Crystal Palace. Chip and Dale can be found in Frontierland. Pirate Goofy will be seen at Pirates of the Caribbean. Carlotta and her butler will be greeting guests at the Haunted Mansion. And Honest John and Gideon will be at Pinocchio Village House. As we reported before, specialty foods and bevies will be available for purchase throughout the park, like the Maleficent Churro with chocolate cookie crumbles, purple icing, and green sprinkles, and the Prince John Sucker, a frozen green apple lemonade slush topped with a ring pop. Adam, your face looks disgusted by this beverage.
Not by the beverage itself, but the name did give me pause, Patrick. You like a sucker, though. You'll probably go in for that.
Indeed I do. Now, when it comes to free goodies, there will be no shortage of Sugar Shock happening with 6 trick-or-treat locations, and kiosks throughout the park will have complimentary soda, strawberry ice, Mickey premium bars, ice cream sandwiches, and popcorn. Tickets are still available via the Disney World website for a handful of the events now through October.
Patrick, the Boo Bash is on your itinerary for the trip you are about to embark on. How excited are you for it?
I'm pretty excited about it, actually. I'm pretty excited about it. From what I'm hearing, there's a lot of chatter out there. I don't know if all of you are keeping up with it. A lot of people are horrified by it because of the price, and a lot of people are pleasantly surprised by it. I think I'll probably be in the middle. I'm excited because, from what I'm hearing, everything is available. Like, you can walk on to all of the attractions, and almost all of them are open for this one, which is a change from the past. Obviously, there are fewer characters to experience, and there's no full parade, but there are so many cavalcades that are happening, you won't miss anything, which in years past, I feel like the Halloween party is so crowded, you almost can't see the parade unless you are waiting for it an hour and a half in advance.
Well, be sure to check out our episode in 2 weeks, Tweedles, because Patrick will have a full rundown of the Boo Bash. Patrick, I don't really want you to enjoy the event. Just take notes, copious notes the entire time, okay?
Absolutely. I'll just be in my phone the entire time and having a Prince John Sucker.
That sounds just like you, Patrick. Whenever a sucker's available, you take full advantage.
That's right. I can always be seen looking at my phone with something in my mouth, you know?
Oh. Moving on from Halloween to Christmas, as one does, Patrick, as we previously reported, Disney Very Merriest After Hours is coming to Magic Kingdom Park as part of Walt Disney World's holiday offerings, and last week, the dates for the event were announced along with some exciting details. The event will take place on 24 select nights, November 8th through December 21st, from 9 o'clock p.m. to 1 o'clock a.m., and will include the nighttime spectacular Minnie's Wonderful Christmas Time Fireworks and the special holiday-themed parade, Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas Time Parade. That's right, a full parade returning to the Magic Kingdom for the first time since the pandemic. Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse will be joined by pals from Disney's Frozen and many other favorite Disney characters, including the very popular toy soldiers. This festive parade will, of course, also feature Santa Claus himself. Tickets for the 4-hour Disney Very Merriest After Hours will grant admission to Magic Kingdom Park as early as 7 o'clock p.m., giving guests more time to enjoy some of their favorite Magic Kingdom attractions. Guests will also have the opportunity to take in the iridescent magic that will be part of the world's most magical celebration, from the brand new fireworks spectacular Disney Enchantment to the transformation of Cinderella Castle into a beacon of magic. It's all in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Walt Disney World Resort. Yes, that means those attending Disney Very Merriest After Hours can experience 2 different and unique fireworks shows in one night. In addition, holiday attraction overlays are also returning. The Jungle Cruise will transform into the Jingle Cruise, and Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor will get new jokes perfect for the joyful season. 20 park attractions will remain open for the event, including favorites like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, The Haunted Mansion, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Dumbo the Flying Elephant, Peter Pan's Flight, Space Mountain, and more. Guests will also have the opportunity to jingle their bells at the Club Tinsel Dance Party in Tomorrowland. Guests will also see Disney characters throughout the park dressed in their holiday best, experience magic snowfall on Main Street, USA, enjoy complimentary snacks like ice cream novelties and popcorn, purchase specialty holiday food and drinks, and partake in Disney PhotoPass holiday magic shots throughout the night. Tickets will go on sale August 20th and can be purchased online or by calling 407-939-7947. Guests of select Disney Resort hotels, Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin hotels, as well as Shades of Green at Walt Disney World Resort can book their tickets as early as August 17th. Okay, everybody, hold on to your butts. Tickets range from $169 to $229 plus tax for select November through December nights, and $249 plus tax on December 19th and 21st. Annual pass holders and Disney Vacation Club members can take advantage of a $10 discount on select event dates in November. Tickets to Disney Very Merriest After Hours do not require an additional day theme park ticket or Disney Park Pass theme park reservation. For more information, visit DisneyWorld.com and search Very Merriest. Patrick, it was a full face palm on the Zoom when I read those prices.
Yeah. Listen, I understand. I get it, because from what I know, they are vastly limiting the amount of people who are going to be at these parties. They are significantly less than they have ever sold before. So that sort of increases the prices a little bit. Also, they're giving away free snacks, so that increases the price a little bit. They're not calling it a party, so I'm guessing there's not going to be a stage show, right?
It doesn't sound like there's going to be a stage show, no, but you do get really 2 fireworks spectaculars and a full parade.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested in that parade. I think that they pulled the trigger a little too early on that, but who knows? So I get the inflation of the price. I think they overshot by about $25 to $50 though per ticket.
Yeah, when does it become too much? Is it just when people stop buying tickets? Is that very obvious to say? Because people will buy these tickets, I think, especially after having not had a full kind of Christmas time celebration event in the Magic Kingdom for well over a year.
Yeah, they are with this after-hours event specifically, they have officially priced half of their customers out of it, I feel like. So only people who can absolutely afford this with no questions asked are going to be able to attend this party, which is disappointing, I would say.
Do you think the December 19th and 21st event dates at $249 per ticket will sell out?
I do, Adam. I sadly do think they're going to sell out. And it's going to be a park full of people that I kind of want to get to know. You know what I mean? I might be looking for a financial situation, someone to pass their legacy on to me for some smooches, maybe.
Out of any of the events, Patrick, this is the one where you can find a literal sugar daddy.
What a treat. In other Disney World news, Adam, it has been over a year since Disney announced their plans to reimagine Splash Mountain with a Princess and the Frog-themed attraction. Now, we still have no word on when the attraction will be shut down for the massive overhaul or when they are hoping to have the new attraction premiere. However, this past week, VP of Magic Kingdom, Melissa Valaquette, gave an update on the progress that has been made so far. Valaquette said of the attraction, sometimes decisions can be made many, many, many months, even years before any of that will be seen on stage. So it's going to take us a little bit of time to reimagine Splash Mountain, but I can tell you, behind the scenes, terrific work has been done, including some selection around music, around animatronics, and it is really an inspiring story. They have created something that I believe will capitalize on what was already special about Splash Mountain, but will turn it into something that our guests will really cherish for generations into the future. Now, as I said, no word on timing for the attraction, but we do now know more about the creative team behind the project. The project is led by Charita Carter, who most recently worked on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and Tony Baxter, the creator of Splash Mountain, will serve as creative advisor for the overhaul. Moving on, two major projects that guests have been anticipating finally have at least tentative openings in the near future. The new Epcot restaurant, Space 220, is expected to open this September, and the new Cirque du Soleil show, Drawn to Life, is scheduled to debut this November 18th in Disney Springs. Now, as of this recording, reservations for Space 220 and tickets for Drawn to Life are not yet available, so I will be at the computer hitting the refresh button until they are.
We need reservations for Space 220 when we're there for the 50th, Patrick.
We do. We happen to know someone who is going to be on the podcast in mere minutes who I imagine can help us out there.
You owe us, Chris.
You owe us a little something.
With the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World Resort fewer than 50 days away, Disney World has teased the forthcoming release of an original anthem for the world's most magical celebration. The song, entitled The Money is Calling... Oh, wait, Magic. Did I say money?
You did. I was like, what an interesting choice.
How embarrassing. It's almost as if that was planned. Oh, gosh. The Magic is Calling was written by platinum-selling songwriter and music producer Alana De Fonseca in collaboration with award-winning composer Emily Baer and singing phenom Journey. Not Don't Stop Believin' Journey, though. De Fonseca's pop music style bears soaring orchestrations, and Journey's magical vocal performance come together to create a song that is nostalgic, inspirational, and contemporary. You can start hearing the anthem soon in a variety of ways. The Magic is Calling will connect to all four parks, as different arrangements of the song will be heard when each Walt Disney World theme park icon transforms into a magnificent beacon of magic at night, beckoning all to come and celebrate. Throughout the 50th anniversary celebration, The Magic is Calling will also be included in special live entertainment moments across Walt Disney World Resort. You'll hear the anthem during Mickey's Celebration Cavalcade, featuring the Iridescent 8 each day at Magic Kingdom Park, and listen for custom arrangements of the song performed by everyone from the Main Street Philharmonic and Dapper Dans to the Discovery Island drummers and Voices of Liberty. And speaking of music, Patrick, the Disney Parks blog gave us a sneak peek at some of the songs from Disney films that will be included as part of Epcot's new nighttime spectacular, Harmonious, debuting on October 1st. Harmonious will open with an inspiring medley of How Far I'll Go from Moana and Go the Distance from Hercules. The spectacular will include rousing Pan-Latin versions of songs from Coco and Saludos Amigos. It will also include a fresh and vibrant arrangement of Dig a Little Deeper from The Princess and the Frog, as well as musical selections from Mulan, The Jungle Book, and Aladdin, and a medley of favorites from The Lion King, performed in both English and Zulu. We'll also hear Out There from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the music of Disney and Pixar's Brave will get a Celtic kick via dueling violins. The show builds to a finale that unites everyone around World Showcase and from around the world, as many of the global musical artists performing the songs I listed come together to perform a poignant and powerful song, bringing Harmonious to an emotional close. Throughout the soundtrack, there's also a musical motif in the form of the soaring medley of composer Pinar Toprak's new Epcot theme, and all of the diverse pieces of music are artfully woven together by arranger Mark Hammond and Walt Disney Imagineering senior music producer and creative director Yaron Spiewak. For more information about Harmonious and the extremely talented and diverse artists bringing it to life, head on over to DisneyParksBlog.com. Patrick, I think there's something like over 400 musical artists from around the globe coming together to bring the soundtrack for Harmonious to life.
It's truly going to be epic. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait.
And there's something so magical about hearing these classic Disney songs that we all know and love, but hearing them in the languages that come from the areas where these movies take place.
Yeah, it's going to be incredibly inspiring. That's for sure. Now, I do think, Adam, that the song Money is Calling is going to be the theme song for the Very Merry After Hours party.
Oh, that's where I made my mistake. So
yes.
It's more focused on the holidays and not the 50th anniversary celebration.
That's exactly right. At $250 a ticket, this song is going to be playing throughout all of the executives' offices.
As they just roll in their piles of money, Scrooge McDuck style.
Yep. It's going to be a sight.
Perry.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la. You know, Patrick, a movie that Disney did not make, but recently acquired, Anastasia, has a song in it called Perry Holds the Key to Your Heart.
Truer words have never been sung.
So as we teased in our intro, Tweedles, we have the absolute delight of welcoming Chris from Wishful Thinking back to the podcast to tell us all about planning a trip to Disneyland Paris.
Disneyland Paris, originally called Euro Disney Resort, opened in 1992, I believe, and it's located about 20 miles outside of Paris. So calling it Disneyland Paris is actually a lie. It's a straight up lie, everybody.
It's an absolute lie. It's actually the second Disney park to open outside the United States, following the opening of Tokyo Disney Resort in 1983. And Tweedles, if you recall, we actually had Chris on the podcast to talk about Tokyo Disney Resort. Those are episodes 128 and 129, a two-parter.
And fun fact, Disneyland Paris is the only Disney resort outside of the United States to be completely owned by the Walt Disney Company.
That's right. It didn't start out that way, but Disney was like, we got to fix some things, so we're just going to buy it.
Make that purchase. Put it in the cart.
Disneyland Paris is about to be celebrating its 30th anniversary next year. Patrick, I think that means we need to go.
We do. We absolutely need to go, especially before the Olympics happen, because it's going to be bonkers during that time. So let's go before the Olympics.
Although if we went during the Olympics, There's the potential we could run into some athletes.
Yeah, some divers and some gymnasts.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
So many positions.
Get gymnasty with some gymnasts.
Gross. Speaking of expansions, Adam, Disneyland Paris is going through a major expansion, which we'll talk about with Chris, with the add-ons of Avengers Campus, Arendelle, the world of Frozen, and they are getting their very own Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Lots of exciting things on the horizon for Disneyland Paris.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to. So if it's always been a dream of yours to go, you might want to wait and hold off a little bit, save some money, and plan for when those new areas open up. It should be a fantastic time to visit the park.
As you said, Chris has been on our podcast many times. But for those who are new listeners, Chris is a full-time authorized travel planner specializing in Disney destinations. That's right. He's trained by Disney in these destinations, including Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, which we'll be talking about, Tokyo Disney Resort, which we've already talked about, Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, and Aulani, a Disney resort and spa in Hawaii.
You can find Chris on the web. That's the World Wide Web. You can find him there at wishful-thinking.com. And he's also on Instagram and Twitter at wishful_thinking. But there's no I's in thinking, so it's at wishful_THNKNG.
Indeed. And just a quick personal plug for Chris's services. Many of our tweeters already are using him as their travel planner. And rightfully so, because he's incredible. He's incredible at what he does. And we've said it 1,002 times, so let's make it 1,003 times. Adam, his services are free for you to use. You are paying no extra dollars to have him fully plan your travel to the Walt Disney parks. You can use them as little or as much as you like, and it's all free to you. And as you'll hear on this podcast, he gives you the real tea. He's not going to lead you astray. He's not going to tell you something's great when it's not. He's going to give you his actual opinion of how things are, and I think that is such a value-added experience that he gives you.
Preach, Patrick Kozicki. That was so well said. Absolutely. We love Chris on this podcast. We love Wishful Thinking. So if you're thinking about a trip to Disneyland Paris, or even just one to the domestic parks, please consider using his services. He'll make it so easy for you.
And without further ado, Adam, let's say bonjour to Chris.
Bonjour, Chris.
Wait, we just started talking and you're already testing my French? No, come on.
Let's just do Beauty and the Beast right now. Let's just do it.
The thing is that when you are a Disney fan and you've grown up watching some of those depictions of French culture, it's impossible for those songs not to immediately start playing in your head the moment that you set foot here. And people really do say bonjour, like everywhere. Even just like passing people on the stairs, walking past one another on the sidewalk. Anytime you walk into any cafe, any bakery, any boulangerie, like literally everyone starts with bonjour. And it is something that if you didn't know it before you got here, you eventually start saying it constantly. And bonsoir in the evenings. But I am fortunate that I've studied foreign languages. I am unfortunate that I've never studied French. And so I've been learning slowly as I go. Thankfully, this is something that you do not need in order to have a great time here, but we'll talk about that.
Well, for our listeners, if you didn't know already, Chris is in Alabama right now. No, I'm kidding. Chris is recording with us all the way from France right now. So thank you so much for joining us across the world, across the pond, Chris.
Yeah, it's late in the day, and the sun sets so late in Paris that, especially when I first arrived, you guys, I'm spending the whole summer here. This is something that I had been dreaming of doing. To be honest, this is something I've dreamt of doing ever since I was a cast member in Walt Disney World. Little quick story. When I was at Epcot working summer after I graduated from college, I used to always sneak into the film Impressions de France over in the French Pavilion, and I would just dream of going to France someday, and I would look at those beautiful, beautiful scenes, all shot in like 1981, by the way, and I don't think they've updated it. But I didn't care. I was just like, I just want to spend a summer in France. I want to spend a summer in Paris. And that is something I'd been planning on in the back of my mind. And then I was going to do it last summer in 2020. Because of the pandemic, obviously I couldn't. So after I got vaccinated, I worked it out to find a place to spend the summer here. And I've been here just loving every minute of it. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And the sun doesn't go down until like 10 o'clock at night. So when they call it the city of light, you really see that. It's luminous.
That's amazing. Patrick, you haven't been to France, right?
I have not. They won't let me in.
And I haven't been to France, and I know a number of our Tweedles have not been to France. And so this will be a great kind of discussion to have, not only talking about visiting Disneyland Paris, but also Paris itself and France as well as kind of this aspirational trip. You know, people are drawn to that city and drawn to that country. So this will be a really kind of fun virtual trip, as we did with Tokyo, to take a little vacation in our minds.
I love that. How romantic of you, Adam.
And then speaking of romance, we do need an update on your love life too, Chris. So we'll get to that later on.
These are always challenges. Which stories do I tell, and how embarrassing am I willing to, how much am I willing to embarrass myself? Listen, I do think that you bring up an interesting question, though, which is that there are many Disney fans who have, been to the American parks, and they know that Disney has these parks overseas, but they're not sure whether or not they should go. They don't know if it's justified to spend the money to travel. And I think there are many Americans who are curious about France, but have never been. And so let me just ask you, just of the people that have never been to France, do you feel as though you hear kind of negative stereotypes about the French that maybe might be reasons why? Because I do hear this. I hear this just from people I know. There are people that are like, yeah, well, I hear the French are really rude. Or like, yeah, well, I hear that if you don't speak French, that they yell at you. Like, have you heard those things too? And I guess I'm curious, for those who have never been to France, do you think that folks maybe are a little intimidated by it? That maybe there's a fear that they won't like us or that we won't have a good time?
I think people are intimidated, but I think those intimidations are unfounded and kind of rest in those stereotypes that you talked about. Because everyone I know who has gone to France and visited Paris has come back and said only the most wonderful things about the people and how welcomed they were.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I was just curious about. So I looked at the statistics for Americans. And for Americans who leave the country, obviously Mexico and Canada are our top two destinations. But once we get into Europe, it's the UK and then Italy and then France. And so it is a top destination for American travelers. That's been true for a long time. But I do think that some of those stereotypes about the French do get in the way. And it's something that I spoke to some of my French friends here about. They said that they feel as though even within Paris itself, over the last 15, 20 years, Paris has come to recognize how much it needs tourism and how much it needs to welcome tourists. And so although it is certainly expected, and it goes a long way, to open every conversation by saying, bonjour, pardon, ne je parle pas français, like a little basic, I'm sorry, I don't speak French, that is certainly a common courtesy. But the moment that you do, in my experience, literally everyone will flip to English right away. And especially in Paris itself, it's never hard to find someone that will assist you. Plus, all of the trains are in English, all of the transportation signs. Any tourist destination is going to have English speakers, and it's a country that is so dependent on tourists coming from the UK that they really can't afford to not have things in English. That's especially true in Disneyland Paris, which is a truly bilingual resort.
Well, that's reassuring to know, Chris. So thank you for sort of settling that. I know that's probably top of a lot of people's minds is it easy to navigate? Can you get around if you don't speak French? So apparently you can, but I imagine it's a little easier if you speak a little bit of French. But I want to segue into a question from one of our Tweedles, actually. This is a question that both Adam and I had as well. Parker wrote into us from Instagram, ADV Parker. And Parker wants to know, what are some things about Disneyland Paris that might be surprising for someone who has only ever visited the domestic parks? So I guess for a conversation, let's sort of start with some broad strokes. What is it about Disneyland Paris that people should know to attract them to the park?
Okay, I could easily spend an hour on this, but let's just zoom out and explain what's different about Disneyland Paris. First off, the size. It is a very large resort. And I think many people assume that it's kind of like just Disneyland light, or that it's this kind of a cute little side version of a Disneyland park. It's not. It is a large resort. I would say that it's size-wise larger than Disneyland in California, but not quite as big as Walt Disney World in Florida. But it has a lot more annual visitors than I ever expected. It's actually one of the top tourist destinations in all of Europe. It is the most visited theme park in all of Europe. And in terms of annual visitors, it gets just below the number of Disneyland California Adventure in terms of just how many people go. So they've got 2 theme parks there. There are 7 official resort hotels, and then a whole bunch of kind of partner hotels nearby. And then within those 2 theme parks, there's Disneyland Park, and then there's Walt Disney Studios Park. Now, as you guys might have covered, if anyone has been watching the Imagineering story, when they first opened Disneyland Paris, it was called Euro Disney. That was 1992. They later changed the name. And then a second park opened in 2002 called Walt Disney Studios Park, which is pretty similar to the concept behind what was formerly Disney MGM, or now Disney Hollywood Studios. The idea of the second park, that it was a working production facility where you had the chance to go into studios. And then also there was a backlot tour where you got to see, productions of things. That has recently changed. They've been actually renovating so much of that second park. So much of it is now closed because they're developing these 3 huge new areas there. So we'll talk about what's already distinct now, but a lot of those changes are things that people really might want to dream about for the future. They've got an Avengers campus that's coming to the second park. They're also developing a huge land based on Frozen, the land of Arendelle. And then they've announced a future Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So there's already a lot of unique things there, but that's only going to grow in the coming years. So if you're someone who, you're not dying to get to Paris right now, but you think this might be something to think about for the future, pay attention to this episode, and we're going to discuss a lot of those things to look forward to.
That's very exciting. And I don't know how many people are aware of this expansion that's going to be happening, but it's going to be incredible and unique locations. You talk about the Frozen land that's being developed. That's only happening in 2 Disney parks around the globe, and Paris is one of them. So it's going to be really interesting to see how successful and how beautiful that area is. But what are some kind of unique attractions that people can experience that exist now in Disneyland Paris that may draw them over?
I want to go land by land within Disneyland Park, and then I also want to get over into the Walt Disney Studios Park and just give you some of the things I've been observing. You guys, I've seen so many fascinating things that sometimes I just want to immediately go live or send out a tweet or something to the nerdiest Disney people I know and say, oh my gosh, did you guys know that they're playing the music from the Epcot Italian Pavilion over in this one little restaurant here? It's just stupid nerd level stuff. I don't know how many people care about those things, but even casual visitors probably would appreciate some of the unique rides that are here. So the one that gets the most attention is probably Crush's Coaster. I'm willing to say that it is the greatest roller coaster in all of the Walt Disney parks around the world. It is astonishingly fun, and I'll tell you guys why. But over in Disneyland Park, they've also just got a lot of unique features and qualities and landscaping that's built into the theming of the park. It is incredibly well designed. It is ornate and scenic and charming in ways that I can't even quite explain. I do think that Disneyland Park is the world's most beautiful castle park of any of the Disney parks. It's just exquisite. So within Disneyland Park, they do have a few very unique walk-through attractions. These are attractions where you're not on a ride, you're literally just walking through. One of them is based on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's the idea that you're touring the Nautilus ship. You get to go literally into the bowels of the ship, and I don't want to spoil anything, but it is just so full of incredible, rich visual detail and creativity. There are other explorer passages in an area called Adventure Isle, which is kind of like Tom Sawyer's Island, but instead of the stories of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, it's pirate stories. And there's countless caves and rope bridges and all kinds of things that you can just explore it. As a little kid, I would have loved to have done some of that. But Adventure Isle is right next to Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's super, super fun. They've also got an Aladdin walkthrough where you get to look at little miniature displays of different scenes from Aladdin. They've got a walkthrough within the main castle there, which is based on Sleeping Beauty. One thing that's different about Disneyland Paris compared to the Florida and California resorts is that it's built to be a pretty much all year round 4-season park, and they do experience full winter here. So there's a lot more indoor queues. There's a lot more stuff that invites you just to explore, to kind of get out of the elements and get inside within Disneyland Paris. And so it's fun to see the ways that they've adapted the park for some of those things. Over in Walt Disney Studios Park, I mentioned Crush's Coaster. Crush's Coaster is themed on Finding Nemo. So that turtle that Marlin and Dory meet, Crush, the sea turtle, he has his own roller coaster where you're sitting on the back of a turtle shell, which spins. I don't want to spoil anything, but it carries you through various scenes from Finding Nemo before finally kind of erupting in this incredible kinetic energy of a roller coaster ride. It's just unbelievably fun. Unfortunately, the load time for that attraction is just really, really long. The fact that you're essentially riding 4 people to a coaster means that there's almost always a pretty long wait to get on top of that. Mm-hmm. But another great attraction that's been there for years now is the Ratatouille attraction. The very first Ratatouille attraction opened here in Disneyland Paris, and now they're bringing a replica of it to Epcot. But the original is here, and it's also super, super fun.
Very exciting. It sounds like there's a lot of unique opportunities in Disneyland Paris that would draw crowds. I have a bit of a side question for you real quick. Going back to those walkthroughs, how accessible are they, would you say? If, say, I were in a wheelchair, would I be able to access all of those walkthroughs?
That is a great question. I know that, for example, the one that takes you down into 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I know that one is accessible. I believe over at Adventure Isle, some of those are more accessible than others. But one thing that is true here is that for anyone who does want to request a disability access pass, it works quite similar to the ones at Walt Disney World. You can visit guest relations, and they make accommodations for everyone, whether you're in a wheelchair or you may have some other sort of physical disability. The process isn't quite as easy as it is in North America, but it is something that I've seen people use just every day that I've been in the parks. I do want to dive into some of the details on Disneyland Park if I can. I want to kind of go land by land. Can I do that with you guys? I want to give your listeners just a chance to imagine if they could go there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Walk us through it.
So the very first thing you notice when you get to Disneyland Paris is this incredibly large, beautiful hotel. Disneyland Paris Resort is one of the only resorts in the world where there is a hotel that's literally built into the park. And when you're staying at the Disneyland Hotel, you can have rooms which directly gaze out into the park itself. So you see this beautiful Victorian hotel right as you approach. And that entry park and that entry plaza is the most beautifully designed park I've ever seen in any Disney resort. It is exquisite. It sets the stage right from the very beginning to show you that the Imagineers and the designers of this park did not cut corners. They thought through every possible walkway to say, how can we beautify this, if that's a word? How can we make this more charming? How can we invite you to go exploring? It's the kind of thing that you might notice, hey, there's a little path that leads somewhere. I wonder where it might lead. And then when you follow it, you discover some sort of really cool thing. And that same concept, presents itself all throughout Disneyland Park. There are hidden walkways, there are little passageways, there's an awning that seems to go nowhere. And if you choose to go exploring, you'll find that it's a secret walkway that takes you as a shortcut through maybe some interesting theming or some fun character display that you would never even know was there. Those kinds of details are all over Disneyland Paris, and it makes me just adore it. It is unbelievably charming. So when you first enter through that hotel, you kind of pass underneath it. At that point, you see a railway station, and it now looks similar to what the Magic Kingdom or Disneyland would look like. But Main Street USA is a little bit different than the Main Streets that you would find in the US. The first thing you'll notice is that there's no central flagpole right at the middle with a big American flag on it. They mentioned this in the Imagineering story on Disney+. Instead, there's a gazebo right there. And as you look along Main Street USA, every building is not adorned with an American flag. There's a few American flags, but it's nowhere near the it's the 4th of July kind of day that you might see in the other parks. So there's a little bit of the toned down Americana, if you will, but they've very creatively woven in connections between France and the US. And so along the two sides of Main Street USA, they've got two arcades. These are covered entries that flank either side of Main Street USA. Again, when it's raining or if it's cold, that's a great way to walk down Main Street USA. They provide rear access.
Keep it in.
They provide an alternate way to enjoy the stores along Main Street USA. But they are gaslit arcades. They're beautiful. And one of those arcades is full of historical details on the creation and the building and the inspiration of the Statue of Liberty. So you've got this kind of incredible walkthrough of the history of how the Statue of Liberty was conceived. I learned for the first time that the sculptor literally used his own mother as a model for the Statue of Liberty. Did you guys know that? I never knew that. She looks like his mom. Anyway, there's all kinds of details along that. There's all kinds of details within that arcade. And then the other arcade has just a bunch of really fun old travel posters and descriptions of what life was like around the turn of the century. So you might see ads for old inventions. You might see, invitations to go and travel to different parts of the world. Just super fun walk through history. I love that stuff. So when you reach the end of Main Street USA, they've got their own castle. They don't have Cinderella Castle here. They have Sleeping Beauty's castle. But the Sleeping Beauty castle here is exquisite. It's beautifully designed, and there's a walk-through passageway that leads you through a bunch of beautiful stained glass windows. And the architecture on the inside is just stunning. Right now, they're restoring part of it, so you can't see the whole thing. But hopefully by the time folks visit, it'll be done with a restoration. Really charming. As you pass through the center of the castle, you're in Fantasyland. Fantasyland here looks a lot like Fantasyland in other Disney parks, but it is so beautifully designed. You guys, there's water features. There's these flowing fountains. Dumbo is slightly elevated, so it looks like it's kind of flying over this water feature. And the different parts of Fantasyland actually take on different kind of geographic themes. The Fantasyland in the US is themed kind of off Bavaria, so you hear a lot of like Swiss music. The Fantasyland here has like 3 different areas. One of them is that Bavaria feel, and then another area is themed after the UK. And so they've got a bunch of Alice in Wonderland stuff that is connected to their Peter Pan story. The Alice in Wonderland area has an incredible labyrinth that's themed after Alice in Wonderland. So you get to like literally hide and get lost within very tall grass hedges. Eventually it takes you to the castle where you meet the Queen of Hearts, who's yelling in French, like, off with her head. And it's, I don't know, I freaking love it. Speaking of, we need to talk about the things that I'm overhearing. There are people bringing families to Disneyland Paris from all throughout Europe. And I swear you have not lived until you have heard an Italian mother scolding her child in Italian. It is spectacular. Anyway, so once you leave this area, there's a whole other part of Fantasyland that's themed around Italy. And so they've got a Bella Notte pizzeria that's themed after Lady and the Tramp, and they've actually got the Italian music playing there, some of the same music that plays in the Epcot Italy Pavilion. But you'll notice that there's a lot of the attractions within Fantasyland are favorites. Many of them are almost exact replicas of what you'll see in the US. But where things really get different is when we head over into what is their Tomorrowland. Have you guys seen pictures of what they call Discoveryland?
Yes, kind of a steampunk take on Tomorrowland, right?
Absolutely. We've seen in the American parks that they've kind of questioned how to best embrace this, vision of the future that never was, and so we've seen Tomorrowland within Orlando kind of changing up its look and its feel every 10, 15 years. They decided when they built Discoveryland here to just kind of erase all of those ideas of a futuristic view. And instead they went with the novels of Jules Verne and this kind of Victorian ideas about what the future might be. And so they've got steampunk aesthetic, that kind of very Victorian era ideas of like Zeppelin air travel. His novels of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Around the World in 80 Days, and those things certainly informed the look and the feel of this land. But their Space Mountain has all of these incredible details. I just love the look and feel of it. I think most people are most familiar with the fact that their Space Mountain goes upside down. It actually has multiple inversions. It kind of feels a little bit like Rock and Roller Coaster, a little bit when you're inside, but they've had an overlay of Star Wars for the last few years. So currently it's called Hyperspace Mountain. That's going to be ending sometime soon. But one of the reasons why I just love their Space Mountain is that the actual coaster seats are incredibly comfortable. Have you ever noticed those roller coasters where you swear you're just getting your head banged against the side of whatever is like holding you in? It turns into like earache the ride. Like whoever designed the coasters for Space Mountain designed these beautifully comfortable things that kind of just hold your shoulders in place and you're not smashing your head against anything.
Oh, that's the dream. That's the Space Mountain dream.
No, it's super fun. They do also have Star Tours there. They've got Mickey's PhilharMagic, which currently has the new scene featuring Coco. Super fun. So there's a lot of other stuff in and around that area that's going to feel familiar. Another area, though, that you must visit, and I would actually send guests there first thing, is their Frontierland. Are you guys familiar at all with what things are different over at their Frontierland?
I haven't seen too much in the way of photos of Frontierland, so I am excited to hear your take on it and their spin on what Frontierland might look like.
So the big difference with their Frontierland is that there's a consistent story that overlays the whole area. The story behind it is that a prospector has shown up at Big Thunder Mountain and struck gold. And after discovering that this whole thing was literally a gold mine, he made all kinds of money. He built himself a tremendous mansion on the top of I think it's called Old Boot Hill or something. So as soon as you enter Frontierland, you notice on the right a pretty scary looking big old mansion. And that is their version of Haunted Mansion. It's actually themed, around the great Old West, what is essentially a ghost town, if you will, once you get inside. But their Big Thunder is the best Big Thunder anywhere. Granted, I've only been on a few, but I've been to the one in Tokyo, which is super fun too. This one is even better, and it's because their Big Thunder roller coaster is kind of located across the water on its own island. So you hop on the coaster on this side. Don't want to spoil anything too much, but I will say that as you pass from what's called the mainland over to the island, you get to get quite a bit of speed and do a lot of fun stuff in the dark. That's all you really need to know. But it just makes for a really, really great coaster.
I mean, who doesn't love fun stuff in the dark,
Which reminds me of my dating life here in Paris, and we will talk about that at the end of the episode. So we have to talk, though, about what's their version of Haunted Mansion. It's called Phantom Manor. It is, in many ways, very similar to what you'd see at other haunted mansions, but they've built a story around like the bride and of a wedding that has gone terribly, terribly bad. I will post a link to the backstory on my Twitter, so if anybody wants to read it, you can. But you meet that bride within moments of arriving at Phantom Manor. There's a great narration by Vincent Price, by the way, that you won't hear anywhere else, like the Vincent Price. And then the music is woven throughout the attraction in a way that it's the same theme that you're going to recognize, but they've added onto it. And the bride kind of takes on this beautifully haunting soprano. Who knew that the bride was a soprano? But she's haunted. She is haunted now at the manor, and she's singing at you from various places throughout. And then you also meet the Phantom, kind of like the Phantom from, the French novel Phantom of the Opera, obviously the inspiration for the musical. But the Phantom himself makes appearances throughout Phantom Manor. So super, super, super cool. And this is where I want to pause to say, I think before I started traveling to overseas Disney parks, I always assumed that the overseas parks were somehow lesser, that Disney maybe would cut corners, or that, because they didn't have the expectations of an American audience, that, it would be kind of done on the cheap. That is not my experience. And Phantom Manor really shows that. Rather, I think the expansion into international parks has shown that when Disney has the chance to kind of reimagine things or go for something a second time, they want to plus it. They want to improve on it. So that is absolutely true at Phantom Manor. There are beautiful special effects and theming ideas that they couldn't have done in 1972 or 1970, whenever the first Haunted Mansion first opened. That's also true when we just go just off of Frontierland, when we head over into Adventureland. They have a Pirates of the Caribbean. You guys, their Pirates is, I'm sorry, it's better. It's really, really great. It's better. It's beautifully designed. The stagecraft that's the only word that I could use. For anyone that's a theater person who has ever looked at scenic design and who has appreciated the wonder of good scenic design, that's the kind of thing that I notice when I go through Pirates. You are constantly turning corners or going down hills, and then there's this reveal of this amazing scenery with spectacular lighting. Their Pirates is absolutely terrific.
That's so fascinating, Chris. It sounds like Disneyland Paris is winning in several categories when it comes to classic attractions. Like, it sounds like they really plussed the classic attractions that we know and love here in the States.
I'm willing to say that, and I think I have a lot of company that would agree. But now let's head over to Walt Disney Studios Park, because the reality is that as much as Disneyland Paris and the park, Disneyland Park at Disneyland Paris Resort, is an example of Disney Imagineering at its best, I think it's fair to say that Walt Disney Studios Park is an example of Disney Imagineering at probably what was its worst.
Oof.
And again, I really do recommend the Disney Imagineering story on Disney Plus, because you'll get to see this was a period where Disney was trying to economize. And so when they conceived of Walt Disney Studios Park, I think they felt that they could kind of get away with spending a little bit less money. Mm-hmm. So there was a version of Rock and Roller Coaster here that was really unimpressive. A lot of the land as it developed just kind of seemed really hodgepodge. So they absolutely were justified in deciding just to tear up a bunch of it and start over. So that Rock and Roller Coaster is now going to be folded into their new Avengers Campus. It's going to have an Iron Man retheming. Mm-hmm. We don't know when the Avengers Campus is going to reopen. They have not given us an official opening date, but those of us who are optimistic are hoping for 2022. Arendelle might not be till 2023, maybe later. Who knows? But Walt Disney Studios Park, I think it's fair to say that it is uneven. That said, once you're in the attractions themselves, like Ratatouille over there, they've certainly done a tremendous job. But when we think through kind of how to plan a trip here, I will advise people to think through just when you're coming in terms of deciding how many days to spend here. For right now, with all of this construction as it is, 2 days is enough to really see everything you really need to see. If you're thinking about coming in 2023, 2024, 3 or 4 days would certainly be justified. But as things now stand for Walt Disney Studios Park, if you're coming with young kids, you'll probably be happier there, because they do have a Toy Story Land there with a bunch of really fun attractions that we don't have in the US. One of them is called RC Racer. It's literally just like you're in a car that goes kind of up a cliff and then back down and then back up. And then, I don't know how to describe this for people that are listening on the radio. Mm-hmm. But it's essentially just a 3-minute long kind of thrill ride. They have a Toy Soldiers parachute drop. They have a Slinky dog ride, but these things are built for little kids. They do also have some Cars themed attractions. They have a kind of a spinner ride that's similar to Mater's Junkyard Jamboree or Alien Spinning Saucers. But their version of it is actually somehow more fun. It actually spins you around faster. I really literally got dizzy on it the other day, and I was like, this is actually super fun. If you don't have small kids, though, right now, the Studios Park is not going to give you a whole lot to do.
Fair enough. Disney, interestingly, I think, has painted themselves in that corner, right? Of they have raised the bar so high that they can't go back. If they present us with something that's less than what we expect, we get a little mad about it. Smuggler's Run, for me, would be sort of along those lines of, great, it's beautiful, but it's not what I expected. And so I'm disappointed by it. And it sounds like the Walt Disney Studios Park is a prime example of that happening.
It is. I would say, though, that one of the big ways that they have made up for that is by putting in some tremendous entertainment here. And unfortunately, that's the kind of thing that right now is currently paused. So if you're visiting anytime soon and those live shows aren't happening, that gives you less to do. But I'm lucky that I was able to visit here in 2018, actually early 2019, and I was able to see some of those shows. Historically, in the past, they've had performers that just knocked my socks off. They do cast a lot of those shows out of the US. And so, their belting Elsa was clearly good enough to be playing that part on Broadway. She was tremendous. They've had a live musical show here that has been really, really impressive. And hopefully it'll come back. Actually, multiple shows I'm thinking of right now. Another one is a fantastic live jazz band with some incredible jazz singers and a tap dancing Mickey. That show normally happens in a very large kind of restaurant theater complex within their Discovery Land. So as those shows come back, there certainly will be more to see. Entertainment-wise, always super, super impressive. But we're going to wait and see what kinds of changes they might make. One thing that Disney World has done is they've really taken their time in bringing back those live performers. So we'll be curious to see what their timeline is here.
Agreed. Well, let's get into some of the nuances then within the parks themselves. I think I know the answer to this, only because we've chatted just a little bit before, but talk to us about the food we can expect in Disneyland Paris. Is it comparable to the parks? Should we pack a lunch instead? What do you suggest?
What to say?
This is already kind of shocking me, because when you think of like France and you think of Paris, you think of food. So I'm shook, Chris. I'm shook by your delay in response.
He's shook.
I think I would like to shake whoever is designing the menus for these restaurants here.
Oh,
you guys, it is really, really sad, because you're right. And this is something that I'm seeing by the fact that I get to hang out in Paris. The cooking in France is amazing. The quality of the food here is tremendous. So it doesn't make any sense that the food at Disneyland Paris is so poor. But to be honest, it'd probably be unfair to say that it's routinely bad. It's just very uneven. The biggest thing I can tell you is that their quick service meals are pretty much where Walt Disney World was about 25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
They pretty much, in their quick service, it's pretty much just bad burgers, bad sandwiches, bad hot dogs. For some reason, a lot of their kiosks also are just really lacking creativity. There's not a lot of cute snacks to get along the way. They seem to sell a lot of Doritos.
Okay, I'm sold on that, I guess.
I find it very odd. Like, I'll see some cute kiosk and be like, oh, I'm going to get a snack. And they're like, they've got Lay's, they've got Doritos, and they've got little cups of Ben & Jerry's. I'm like, I'm in France, and I could buy a little 5-euro cup of Ben & Jerry's? Like, it doesn't make sense. Aside from those quick service restaurants, which are routinely poor, sadly, they do have some very good sit-down restaurants. And so I'll get into a few recommendations. I have to say, I've listened to a lot of podcasts over the years where people have visited international parks. And one of my biggest pet peeves is when they come back and just say that everything was amazing. I think they just want the people to think like, ooh, I've taken this international trip and it was all amazing. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. If I'm listening to a podcast and I want some advice, tell me what was good. Tell me what wasn't. Tell me what's worth my money. Tell me what not to do. So that's the kind of specifics that I've got, not only for your listeners, but if anyone comes to me to help them plan a trip, I will steer you right. And one of the things I will not do is send you into the Hakuna Matata quick service restaurant. It looks adorable. It is beautifully themed, but my gosh, that food was some of the worst I've ever had. Okay. But there are some very good sit-down table service restaurants. And thankfully, it is free to book a table service restaurant. You don't even have to put down a credit card. You don't get charged any penalties if you fail to show up. So booking a bunch of sit-down dining is a good way to go. A lot of their sit-down restaurants also do have prefix menus. So you're only spending a certain amount of money and they're giving you 3 courses a lot of times. So even the value makes it worthwhile. Within those sit-down restaurants, I will say, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now a few that I think are kind of extra notable. The first one is actually right next to Ratatouille. They've got essentially a restaurant that is themed as if Remy himself had opened his restaurant. So you are shrunk down to the size of a rat. All the table furnishings are charmingly designed as if you're sitting on, little cork that's came out of a champagne bottle, or tables that are made out of like little drink umbrellas, and there's lights that look like Christmas lights, but everything is the size of a rat. The food there isn't the best I've ever had, but it's pretty darn good and actually, worth it for the price. So that is called Chef Remy's Bistro. Highly recommended. Just next to Pirates, actually built into Pirates, the same way that Blue Bayou is built into Pirates over at Disneyland. They've got a restaurant built into Pirates called Captain Jack's. But one thing that's different about this one is that it is not New Orleans cuisine. It's actually cuisine as if you're in the Caribbean, which is, kind of cool. It's the only, Pirates of the Caribbean restaurant that actually serves Caribbean food. But it's actually very, very good. I had some fantastic meal there. Also had a really, really great server who had spent a year working at Epcot in the France Pavilion. So it was super fun just to chat him up about what his experience had been. Their version of the Plaza restaurant is called Plaza Gardens. It is also, normally it's a buffet, but right now it's a all you care to enjoy meal. Very, very high quality food. Well worth the price. Really, really, really good. And in their Adventureland, they have an Aladdin-themed restaurant called Agrabah Cafe, which is Mediterranean cuisine. So they've got hummus, they've got various tzatziki and all kinds of different spreads. They had grilled barbecued meats. Very good food. So you can get good meals here. You just need someone to steer you in the right direction. It's not like every sit-down restaurant is equally great. I have had some not so good sit-down meals as well, but a handful of those table service restaurants really are good. By and large, the newer restaurants are serving better food, and the restaurants that have been around for a while, maybe not so much.
Well, that's good to know that there are some options that can appeal to those who maybe consider themselves foodies. But let's talk about accommodations now, Chris, because you mentioned at the top of the segment that there's several hotels on property, right?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the big question that I think people really have, which is where should you stay? Let's say that you've never been to Paris before and you know you're going to want to see some, Paris sites, but you also want to do some time at Disneyland. First off, I think it's important to just take note of the lay of the land. Disneyland Paris is not located in Paris proper. It is located in Chessy, which is about 45 minutes away if you were to drive. Most people, however, are not going to want to drive. So you either have the option of staying in Paris and taking the train, which is super convenient and very affordable. However, you're going to be dealing with potential commute, transit times, trains that are just not running for whatever reason. And so if you are really one of those people that wants to be in the park, enjoying the park for the park experience, I would rather encourage you to stay out at Disneyland Paris, particularly for your days when you're in the park. If you are a guest in any of the Disneyland hotels, and there are 7 of them, if you're a guest there, you get extra perks, including the chance to enter the park about an hour earlier than everyone else. And that is a huge, huge, huge benefit, especially as crowds begin to return. Getting into the parks nice and early means you just get a head start on a lot of those popular rides. And so within Disneyland Paris, the hotels are located within walking distance of the parks. Some of them are much closer than others. And there is one that's actually not walkable. But the ones that are walkable, you could take a shuttle if you wanted to, but most people do choose to walk. So one hotel that has gotten a lot of recent attention is the recently refurbished and rethemed Hotel New York, The Art of Marvel. Have you guys seen any stuff from this hotel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of pictures have been emerging, and it looks exquisite and really, really cool and fun.
I think that's the way that I would describe it. Y'all, I don't think of Disney hotels as being cool, right? I think of Disney hotels as being like charming or relaxing or like a return to a previous era. That is not what this hotel feels like. It feels genuinely cool. Like even the music that is playing in the background, you're like, dang, somebody smart made this playlist. There's some really cool stuff there. So this hotel is an older hotel. It was designed by Michael Graves, a famous architect who built the Swan and the Dolphin. And when I visited in 2019, it definitely needed some fresh energy. It was feeling, pretty 1990s. But they brilliantly rethemed and refurbished everything and have decked it all out with incredible artwork from real Marvel artists. So if you're a Marvel fan, if you're a comic book fan of any kind, you're going to love the look and the feel of this hotel. The rooms have been refurbished. Many of the rooms have original art, but all throughout the lobby, there are murals. There are countless examples of just real fresh creativity of artists that have approached the Marvel properties. They also have a fantastic pool. There are rooms with a view that look out over across the lagoon that connects the various Disney hotels. And there are 2 fantastic restaurants. Speaking of food, these 2 restaurants have had the chance to eat at both. One of them is called Downtown. The other one is called Manhattan. Both serving some great, great food, well worth the cost. And so if you are a guest at this hotel, right now you also have the chance to enter these really cool kind of club, I don't know how to describe it, but they're photo opportunities where you can immerse yourself into settings that look as though you're literally in the comic books themselves. One of them is an upside down room, whereas if you are Spider-Man hanging from the ceiling, you get to see what it would look like as if you were hanging from the ceiling and take a bunch of pictures in there. Super cool. And those things are exclusive for resort guests. So again, that is the Hotel New York, and I'd highly recommend it. But as soon as you've left Disneyland Paris and you've walked through these hotels, you'll notice that there's 4 or 5 hotels that are located right next to one another. So the convenience of getting from these Disneyland hotels into the parks is all pretty terrific. If you were to look at how it's all laid out, it might feel kind of similar to the way things are set up at Universal Orlando Resort, actually, in terms of the fact that there are some hotels that are located right next to the park, others that are kind of along a river that are a little bit further away. But the resort itself is large, and there's more than enough hotel rooms there and plenty to choose from. And the budget range is really pretty terrific. So I'll get into some of those specifics in a hot second. But a few of the hotels that I really recommend, one of them is called the Newport Bay Club. It is very similar to the Yacht and Beach Club over at Epcot in terms of how it feels, in terms of the theming, and just the quality of the amenities. Really, really lovely hotel that also just got a kind of a top to bottom renovation a few years ago. And then the other one that we really have to point out is the Disneyland Hotel. That is the one I mentioned, which as soon as you walk up, it is the main facade of Disneyland Paris. It is spectacular, and it's currently being renovated. We're not sure when that renovation will be done, but between those 3 hotels, you could easily have a tremendous stay. But you guys, this is what I think a lot of people do not know. Have you ever priced out a trip to Disneyland Paris? Would you expect that it would be comparable to, let's say, American parks in terms of the actual cost?
My assumption would be it's super expensive. That's just where my head lands, is like it's going to be a high price point.
And my assumption is that, yes, the flight might be expensive to get over there, but then the actual park's cost is more affordable than Disney World or Disneyland.
So, first off, getting to France right now has gotten very affordable just because of the pandemic. But once you are there, you guys, the pricing here is stunning. It is stunning. You right now could price out a trip for later this year into next year. Anytime you stay in a Disneyland Paris hotel, they're giving you essentially a free full day in the park. So you could have a 2-night stay. They're going to include 3 days of park hopper tickets. And the cost right now is almost half of what it would cost for you to do a Walt Disney World trip.
Wow.
Even at their nicest hotels. So just for example, I mentioned the Art of Marvel. You could do a 2-night stay for 2 guests with a 3-day park hopper ticket, and it would cost you right about $1,000. So just that same thing, if you were to do in a comparable hotel at Walt Disney World, easily $2,000, easily twice that. At the Newport Bay, which is a beautiful hotel, I literally just priced this out for a client the other day. 2-night stay for 2 guests with 3 days of tickets for just about $800 US.
Wow.
And you guys, that's accommodations that would easily cost you like $1,900 in the yacht club over at Walt Disney World. So it's true that you're getting less when you stay at Disneyland Paris in terms of what's available in the parks. There are fewer attractions, especially right now when things are still closed for renovations. But Disneyland Paris as a park it's a big park. There's a lot of attractions there. There's more than enough to keep you busy for 2-3 days. And you're spending about half of what you would spend for a similar trip to the American domestic parks. So I think it's well worth it. Beyond that, if you are able to book through Wishful Thinking, we book directly with Disneyland Paris. Like, we are part of the Walt Disney Travel Company. So I would strongly recommend, if anyone's thinking about it, please reach out. I can set everything up for you. And it costs you the exact same as if you were to do it directly through the Disneyland Paris website. So beyond that, I will say that there's a few other big things to consider as you're planning a trip here, which is just, let's say you love Disneyland, let's say you love Disney experiences, but what should you do in Paris? How many days do you need to see Paris? And how should you plan all that out? How do you guys like to do international trips? When you travel to foreign cities, what do you guys like to do? Like, what are your kind of typical wish lists?
I'm big on seeing the art in a different location. I really appreciate like architecture and art, and that's where I want to go generally.
And I'm similar to Patrick in that I like architecture, but I also want to see the arts. Like, I want to see performances, or I want to see musicals or something like that.
That's cool. And obviously, France has more than enough to keep you busy when it comes to cultural experiences. I'm lucky that I had a really good friend of mine from London who had never been to Paris before. And he came and visited a few weeks ago. And it was something that he'd always just kind of saved for a future day. He wasn't sure when he was going to do it. But, London is super close and he hadn't had the chance to visit. But one of the things he'd never done is been to the Louvre or any museum really that is comparable to the Louvre. He knew he needed to see Mona Lisa. And we had thought that we would just kind of zip in, kind of make a quick run past the locations where the Beyonce video was filmed and then go have a look at Mona Lisa and then kind of head out. And I had this whole day planned of these other things that I thought we were going to do because he didn't really seem all that interested in the Louvre. Y'all, we set foot in there and within 5 minutes, his jaw was on the floor. He had never seen this level of just astonishing artistry. From room to room, from gallery to gallery, of some of the world's most incredible artistic treasures. And so we ended up staying until they kicked us out of the museum, just because, to be fair, he didn't know what he had been missing. He just didn't really know what was there. The other thing that was so great to see, though, is that when we finally got into the room where he got to see the Mona Lisa, he was like, my God, I finally understand what they have always said about her. Like, now that you see her in person, it really does kind of look like she's smiling at you. There's always something about seeing art in person that's so different than just looking at it on a computer or a photograph. That was my reaction when I saw Michelangelo's David when I went to Italy. I'd seen countless pictures of it, but until you're actually standing face to face with this sculpture and it knocks your socks off, it's always incredible to realize why an icon is an icon. And Paris is full of them. So when you have the chance to go to the Louvre, when you have the chance to go to the Eiffel Tower, you just get blown away by just how impressive these places truly are and have been for generations. And so I would say you need at least 3 days in Paris proper to see the most important things. So that's going to be the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre Museum. You're definitely going to want to see Notre Dame. Hopefully, by the time you visit, you'll have the chance to see more of Notre Dame. As your listeners clearly remember, there was a terrible fire that nearly destroyed the entire thing, but they're doing a tremendous restoration of it. Right now, there's a lot of really cool explanations as you kind of walk the perimeter of the cathedral that explain exactly what they're doing and all the global experts that have come to lend their talents to restore that. But if you've only seen Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney film, you still are going to have some feelings of just awe and inspiration as you look on this incredible work of architecture. It's stunning. Beyond that, you're definitely going to want to see different neighborhoods. So getting up to the neighborhood up on a hill, Montmartre, where they've got this famous cathedral, the Sacré-Cœur, like to head up there either first thing in the morning and to watch the light come up or later in the day to watch the light go down over Paris. It's absolutely magical. You're going to want some time just to sit in a cafe. You're going to want to be able to just sit in a bistro. I took my friend, we just wasted 3 hours just sitting in a bistro, watching the street traffic go by and eating some terrific cheese and drinking some really great, inexpensive French wine. Like, you have to do that stuff. And then if you're able to give yourself a day, at least a half day, but probably a full day, to make it out to the palace at Versailles, that would be another thing that I highly, highly, highly recommend. These things are famous for a reason. And for all of these things, especially Versailles, you're going to want to make sure you buy your tickets in advance. You don't want to get stuck in these really long ticket lines, but giving yourself at least 3 days, essential. And I would recommend that you book a separate hotel when you're staying in Paris for that stuff. Again, you're not going to want to have to get on the train for a 45-minute commute to do everything twice a day. Plus, when you're in Paris, you're going to want to be able to stay someplace where you just kind of stumble through the neighborhood. You just kind of go get lost in a crooked alleyway and find a cute little boulangerie that's got a line of people lining up for fresh baguettes and croissants. And you're like, well, I'm going to find out what that line's for. And then you order what everyone else is ordering and you discover some amazing French food. Like, you got to give yourself those experiences in Paris.
So I don't know about you, Adam, but I am absolutely sold, of course, on Disneyland Paris. I'm absolutely sold on seeing the architecture and the art of France. But Chris, we are an LGBTQ plus podcast. After all, we need to know a little bit more about the nightlife in France and a little bit about the culture too. What is it like? What's the experience for a member of the LGBTQ plus community in France?
So that brings up recommendations of where you might want to stay. I would actually encourage you when you are booking hotels in Paris. And again, this is something that I assist my clients with all the time. But there's one neighborhood called the Marais, with that R in the middle that I can hardly ever pronounce correctly, Marais. So that is in and around the third arrondissement. And I would recommend that folks stay there, in part because the visibility of LGBTQ people there is pretty terrific. One of the very first gay bars in Europe opened there, and it's still open. One thing that is very true about the gay nightlife in France is that it does not change very quickly. So if you've been to the gay bars here 5-10 years ago, chances are good that your favorite bar is still there. The queer community here does express itself relatively comfortably in that neighborhood. So you'll see, visible gay folks, you'll see folks holding hands. One thing that has surprised me is that I've very rarely seen LGBTQ couples outside that neighborhood. So there are times that it feels a little bit like the way that maybe Boys Town in Chicago or the Castro might feel, that when you're in that particular neighborhood, you feel really visible, but there's not as much visibility outside that neighborhood as I would have expected. I think we tend to assume that France is a very laissez-faire, modern culture, and I think we forget it's actually more conservative than folks might realize. Even after same-sex marriage was passed here, there were still demonstrations, against same-sex marriage, and the culture is more conservative than we might realize. That said, I think gay travelers should feel absolutely comfortable coming here. You can easily book a hotel anywhere in town. No one's gonna give you any issues. But the queer history of Paris is rich. And if there's any historians who want to dive into, especially some of those French Impressionists, oh my gosh, there's so much you could learn. You could literally just go and stay in various, hotels and cafes where some famous queer figures, especially Josephine Baker. I mean, there's just some incredible history of gay Paris, literally. So I'd encourage people to look into some of that stuff. That can be super cool. Beyond that, I do think people are going to want to question, how much money is this going to cost? Should they be spending this money on their time in Paris? How much should they spend to get over there? How much time they really want to stay? Maybe we should talk about budgeting a little bit.
Tell us about the money, Chris. How much do we need to be saving? Because already this sounds like the way to kind of dip your toe into international travel to Disney parks. And then on top of that, you get the added benefit of exploring Paris and parts of France too. So how much should we be allocating for a trip like this?
You really don't have to spend an arm and a leg to come here. You honestly don't. One thing that's cool about French tourism is that their hotels are actually regulated. So a hotel in America can just say that they're a 5-star hotel, or they could just say that they're a 4-star hotel. There's no one that's going to chase the note and be like, you are not. Whereas in France, that's actually a regulated system. So if a hotel says that they are 4 stars, it is something that literal French government inspectors have come and looked at. So when you start pricing out hotels, you can, choose your budget based on the quality of the amenities that you might want. But there are a lot of bargains to be had, especially if you're willing to travel off-peak. There's a few periods that you're going to want to avoid. Avoid August, especially those first few weeks of August. That is a period where just all of France kind of shuts down and goes on vacation. So the fact that so many people are traveling means that hotels are more expensive at that period of time. And it also means that a lot of the cute cafes and restaurants and things literally shut their doors for 2 weeks. So avoid August. I mean, the tourist stuff is open, but cute little shops, cute little local places, a lot of those are closed. I will say that Christmas time and the period right around Christmas can be lovely. That's actually a lower travel time, and you can find some great bargains. I had the chance to visit for Christmas a few years ago and went to Disneyland Paris at Christmas. It was snowing the day we were in the park, which is always kind of trippy to see snow falling in a Disney park, but it was lovely, and that's a time when you can save some money. Anytime basically during the colder season months, so January, February, March, you're definitely going to save some money. But you really don't have to spend an arm and a leg to come here. It's honestly, other than the fact that some flights especially from the West Coast can be pretty pricey, a lot of flights from the Northeast can be pretty affordable, about the same as, or just a little bit more than it would cost to get from a cross-country US trip. But you can find bargains.
Well, this is good to know. It sounds like it is reasonably affordable right now anyways. I know something on the top of a lot of people's minds, a lot of our tweeters' mind specifically, is cancellation right now. Things are changing every day. It seems like there's a different news story every hour right now when it comes to how this pandemic is progressing or regressing and then progressing again. What is it like right now for France specifically and Disneyland Paris in the way of cancellations if someone needs to back out of a trip last minute?
So one thing that Disney has really done very well, as far as I'm concerned, across all of their properties, is they've made it very easy to cancel or modify trips. That is really true here at Disneyland Paris. They've got a thing called their Zen Booking Guarantee, where you can cancel for a full refund or make any modifications with no penalties up until 7 days before you travel. So they're really rewarding you with flexibility. When you do a new booking, they ask for about 15% of your total package cost to make that reservation. So you're not even having to put a whole lot of money down. They've got bookings now available through September of 2022. So you can really plan pretty far out if you'd like to. This is also true at Walt Disney World at Disneyland. Like, they're doing very generous cancellations and refunds, and just the chance to modify things really up very close to the time of your check-in. One thing I would highly recommend for folks to do if they're thinking about traveling, this is not just for anyone that's doing Disney travel. This is really true throughout the entire travel industry. I would encourage you not to use third-party booking sites. A lot of these third-party bookers, whether that might be something that's offering you kind of a cute little discount, could be something you just found on Google. A lot of those are really struggling to maintain, good refunds, good cancellation possibilities. So when you book through Wishful Thinking, again, it's a booking through the Walt Disney Travel Company. And so all of those protections are built in because it's coming directly from Disney. But anyone that's considering this trip or any other trips, I really encourage you to steer clear from third-party booking sites anytime soon. Beyond that, I would really encourage people to remember that advanced booking, more than anything, it's going to save you money because you have the chance to look at all the full categories of what's available. Typically, the cheapest categories of hotels are the ones that book up soonest. So if budget really is on your mind, it behooves you to plan early. You're just going to find that there's more affordable options available to you the further in advance you're making those reservations.
That's some great advice. And if you are dreaming about this, absolutely reach out to Chris because he can steer you down the right direction and make wonderful recommendations for you. All right, Chris, we teased it. We have to talk about it now. You just happened to be visiting Paris, and specifically Disneyland Paris, when Premier Access debuted. For those of you that don't know, Premier Access is Disneyland Paris's new paid kind of fast pass service. Chris, what can you tell us about it?
So anyone that's visited the Disney park since reopening has noticed that Fast Pass and the Fast Pass queues have completely disappeared. This is something that anyone who visited a Walt Disney World park was given 3 automatic Fast Passes per day where you could select 3 attractions and you could kind of skip the line. Since reopening, they haven't come back, and there's been this giant question about whether or not they ever will. So when Disneyland Paris announced this Premier Access, this new idea where rather than have free fast passes, you would literally pay per attraction for a fast pass. Many people have questioned whether or not this is kind of a vision of the future that's going to come to the American parks. I don't know, but I can tell you how it works here. And it's actually pretty simple. So within Disneyland Paris, they've got their own app, similar to the Disneyland app or the Walt Disney World app. It's different. It is not quite as full featured, but thankfully it does function in English. When you're standing in the park, you're able to look at the app and it simply says, here's the current wait time for an attraction. It might be 40 minutes. And then for just a low price, you can purchase what's called Premier Access, where you're paying anywhere from €8 to like €15 in order to skip the line. So the way it works is that you're essentially purchasing it for almost immediate use. So let's say that it's 10 o'clock. Like, you open your app, it's going to say, all right, you can purchase Premier Access, and your access will begin at like 10:15. So you're literally purchasing it for that moment. It's not something that you're setting up for throughout the day where you're buying one Premier Access point for 10 o'clock and then another one for 2 o'clock and another one for 5 o'clock. It's literally something that you're doing in the moment. And you can't purchase it for later in the hour. You can only purchase it for right at that time. That said, once you've made that purchase in the app, it gives you a QR code. There's a separate entry. You walk up to the cast member, you show them your phone, they scan your QR code, and then you hop right in. I think it's an open question of whether or not this is going to be popular right now because they're operating at a reduced capacity. They don't have these really long wait times as what will probably happen in the future. So even now, for their most popular attraction, the longest wait was maybe 45, 50 minutes the other day for only a handful of attractions. Once the full access of any number of guests can enter, I think we're going to be seeing people buying it. I bought one the other day just to see how it worked. It was pretty seamless. One kind of annoying thing is that you have to re-enter your credit card info every time you buy it. For some reason, their app isn't saving your credit card info. I'm sure that's going to change. These things are still new. But it is something that I wouldn't be surprised if we see happen at Disneyland or Walt Disney World. I don't know. Would you guys pay for a Fast Pass? And if so, like, are there certain attractions you would definitely pay and others that you never would? Like, how would you guys approach it if you had that option in the American parks?
Well, the way that you've described it, I feel actually now that I might take advantage of this because anyone who's been to Disney World knows that you had to in the past select these times, right, for your Fast Pass for an attraction. And very often you've selected a time that no one's even in line anyways. And so you've saved zero time by using this Fast Pass. So now it sounds like, at least here, you can decide right then and there whether or not this is worth your dollars and your time to invest in. So I would use it. I think I would use it.
And I would use it only in the instance if it was something like Rise of the Resistance, where it's a newer attraction, it's very hot. I know I'd be paying more for it, but in that instance, time is money, and I just want to get on the attraction as soon as possible.
Yeah. One thing that a lot of guests don't realize is that in the before times, as high as 75 to 80% of any guests that were experiencing an attraction were doing it through the Fast Pass queue. I mean, that's data from like independent, data scientists who have looked at those things. Disney doesn't publish those numbers. But now that the Fast Pass queue is not in use in Walt Disney World, the actual wait times, the posted wait times have actually gone down. Mm-hmm. The entire attraction is pulling off from one queue. And so that queue is moving more quickly than it did when it was pulling from two separate queues. But one of the main things I do like about this, as you mentioned, Patrick, is that you're able to just kind of wait for the moment to decide whether or not something is worth it. Like, it was not necessarily fun to have to plan out exactly which 3 attractions you were going to do 60 days in advance. Meanwhile, you didn't know, is it going to be thunderstorming that day? Is that attraction potentially going to be closing? And when they were trying to get you to use a Fast Pass on something like Mickey's PhilharMagic, you're like, come on, do I really need a Fast Pass for this? So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar. But I don't know. Disney guests don't like these constant upcharges. I don't think anybody does. Like anything, I'm sure Disney will modify and make changes based on feedback from the guests.
Yeah, I think you're right. Interesting. This is interesting. More to come for sure on if this develops here in the States. So time will tell. Well, Adam, do you feel like an expert on Disneyland Paris now, as I do?
I feel like I know just enough to start looking into it and using Chris's services to help me along the way.
That's right. Just enough to be a little bit dangerous. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Well, Chris, before we let you go, we need to ask you a couple of things. I have not forgotten about asking you about your love life, but before we get to that, we need to talk about Walt Disney World and the 50th. Just very briefly, how are you feeling about it? What are you recommending to people who use your services? Where are you at on the 50th anniversary right now?
I will be there. That's where I'm at. I'm personally going to be there. I'm going to be in the park. I have got my theme park reservation for Magic Kingdom on October 1st, and I am not giving it up. No, my plan is to spend most of October there. I'm excited, and I'm also, a little bit cautious to look at the reality of the way this pandemic is unfolding. I think predicting too far in the future has proven to be a real fool's errand. I'm happy the fact that Disney is continuing to take their cues from the CDC. I'm glad that they are not bowing to public pressure. And I'm glad that they are putting the health of their guests and their cast members really at the forefront. That said, I recognize that there are guests who are choosing to say, you know what, this isn't quite what I was expecting. And some of them are choosing to postpone for a later date. Again, as I mentioned with Disneyland Paris, Disney is being very flexible. And so if you have a booking for this fall and you're not sure if it's really what you're
what you'd want to do and you want to consider other dates, by all means, reach out to me. I am in the Disney booking engine every day looking at availability throughout all of Walt Disney World. It is certainly true that the fall months, right, October, November, December, are very, very booked. There certainly are guests that are choosing to wait, especially guests who have young children that have not yet qualified for vaccinations. And so I do think that we'll see some availability, in these coming months. But I'm seeing a lot of folks that are already booking well into 2022, either with the anticipation that the things with the pandemic will be better, or that their children will be vaccinated, or that they themselves will just feel more comfortable traveling. But occupancy is really quite tight throughout the resort. Disney is seeing a lot of bookings come in. The fact that they've announced the full reopening of all of their resort hotels, the fact that all of Port Orleans is reopening, that is the largest resort just in terms of number of beds. The fact that they've opened all of the All-Star resorts, that tells you that they see the demand returning. But I want to help guests make smart decisions. That's not just in terms of their health, which of course is very individual for everyone who might be traveling, but also have kind of an accurate sense of just what the crowds are going to look like, how busy things are going to be. I think as 2022 arrives, we'll start to see a return to kind of more quote unquote normal patterns. Just the fact that just after the holidays in early January and February, that's a period of low occupancy and not as many travelers. We're certainly seeing that in terms of the price points on hotels. At lower busy times, hotels become more affordable. So for folks that are looking for bargains, for folks that are looking to protect themselves, for folks that are looking for, predictions on crowds, I've got a lot of that just real world observational data that I can share. And it's something that I'm honored to be able to help with. I look at every family and every individual guest or any couple that's traveling, I talk to them about what's most important to them. And then hopefully I can just give them the most honest and realistic advice that I can.
Fantastic advice, as always, Chris, not only about planning a trip to Disneyland Paris and what to expect if you are dreaming of making that trip, maybe not anytime soon, but definitely, in the coming years as Walt Disney Studios continues to expand and we get those new areas. It's going to be a fantastic visit, but also we really appreciate your advice on traveling during the pandemic. Very, very helpful. Chris, how can people reach out to you if they want to use your services? Where can they find you?
They can find me in the Marais at particularly one of the bars where I've probably had 2 or 3 very strong vodka cocktails. For some reason, their drinks here are very strong. And I'm longingly gazing at all these ridiculously attractive French men. You guys, that's the reality. That's the reality of my dating life here. It is an awful lot of... let's say it's the opening number of a musical. I'm in my opening number where I'm clutching my heart and I'm wandering through the streets of Paris saying, where will I find love? That's where my dating life is. You guys, I have gone on some dates here. I'm not going to lie. I've gone on some dates. I have yet to go on dates with anyone here where I'm really dying for a second date. I don't know what it is about my luck here, but I've yet to find my particular French Prince Charming. I think I need to enter the cooking school that Julia Child entered in Julia and Julia. Mm-hmm. Can I just find me a cute chef? I feel like that is what I know I love. I love to eat. If I can find a man that can make me some French pastries, I think that's going to be that's going to bring me satisfaction. Okay. So beyond that, you can find Wishful Thinking on Instagram. It's wishful then _ and then THNKNG, thinking with no eyes. And please follow me on Instagram. I'm putting a lot of tips in my Instagram stories lately. But definitely, if you're thinking of a trip, whether it's now or in the future, just go to the website. It's wishful-thinking.com. And then just click that big red button right on that homepage. Say that you're thinking about a future trip. And go ahead and tell me whatever you know. If you're just dreaming about it or if you already have some specific details, it's never too soon to start making some plans. And I would love to connect with anybody that has a Disney trip in mind. I've also got folks that are planning, trips to Aulani. The Disney Cruise Line has finally started sailing again. Adventures by Disney is starting to start up some of their itineraries. And so all of that stuff, That's all within my wheelhouse. It's all stuff that Disney literally trains me on to be an expert. As much as I know about Disneyland Paris, I actually know a whole lot more about these other areas that who knows when we're ever going to have the time to talk about. You guys know I'm never at a shortage for words.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's why we ask you back time and time again. Speaking of which, thank you. Thank you so much for coming back to our show time and time again. Our Tweedles love you. They look forward to the episodes that you're on. So we appreciate and value your time.
You guys, I just love talking to you. So I'm going to find you somewhere in Orlando on the 50th. I don't know if we'll end up making plans or if I will just kind of stand at the center of the Castle Hub and start screaming your name until you arrive. But we are going to find each other there. I think that's what I want to do. I think for the night of the first fireworks, the new enchanted, what is it going to call it? The enchanted fireworks. I think I just want to plant myself in the middle of the crowd and just start screaming your names until you eventually find me. I think I want to make a scene.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, Patrick.
I am adding to our Amazon wish list a paid subscription to Google Meets.
It has been such a journey today. You know, with the free version of Google Meet, there is only a limited window in which you're allowed to meet, and then they cut you off. So there's been a lot of starting and ending and restarting today.
That's right. And if you know me, I need more meat in my life, you know?
You need a lot more meat in your life.
Oh dear. Well, Adam, it is time once again for Quick D. That's right. We have come to the end of our episode. And I figured since we were talking all about Gay Paris, let's do the D and imagine queer some attractions.
I don't fully see the connection, but I support everything you just said.
Thank you. The point is we're getting gay. We're getting gay on
got
some
it.
attractions.
Got
it. For those who have not experienced the magic that is Imagine Queering, I will be randomly selecting an attraction in the Disney parks, and Adam and I are going to put on our thinking caps, our gay thinking caps, and gay it up. We're going to queer it up, Imagine Queer that attraction. Adam, are you ready?
I'm absolutely ready. I'm thrilled to be included. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Chewbacca is here as well. He is the cup who holds all of these attractions, reaching deep into his skull. I have selected the Kali River Rapids.
Wow. If there ever was an attraction that needed some Imagine Queering, it is this attraction. Patrick, you've never been on this attraction, right?
I have been on the attraction 2 times, and both times it has fully stopped. And so I had to evacuate the attraction 2 times. So I have never gotten past the loading dock for Kali River Rapids.
That is hysterical. Well, let me tell you something. You are missing absolutely everything with this attraction. It is stunningly wild and magical.
I hear it's quite the journey.
Yeah, so what are we going to do to this thing? I mean, first of all, make it work properly for you would be a good start.
A functional attraction would be a real good start.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, a river ride, gays like to splash around in the water, don't they? I mean,
they do.
They like to get wet in their little Speedos.
Well, maybe we do that. Maybe we turn it into sort of a hot Disney prince meets Baywatch situation.
I love it. Maybe it's a lazy river meet and greet for hot Disney princes and Speedos.
I like this. And princesses. Listen, we have to accommodate all of the LGBTQ plus spectrum.
You're right. And Stitch, because we don't know.
We're not quite sure, and that's okay.
That's absolutely okay. Okay, so we got hot Disney princes. We got hot Disney princesses. They're in their beachwear. And they're what, in tubes? They're just tubing down a river?
They're tubing down the river, drinking some hard seltzers.
Yes. In fact, the river's made of hard seltzers.
I think our work is done. I don't know. That feels accurate. That feels correct. There has to be a message, right? Because the message behind this one is conservation, and maybe the message behind this new gay ride is skincare.
The sponsor is sunscreen.
That's right. The sponsor is Jergens.
Oh no. There's some connotations with lotions that take me to a different place, Patrick.
You're in the right place then. You're in the
okay.
Right
That will do it for this episode of Gays Do the D. Thanks for listening. To become a patron of the podcast, visit our website at gaysdothed.com/donate. For a donation of any amount, you can receive exclusive Gays Do the D content and help us continue to bring you the very best Disney news and discussion. Continue the conversation after this episode on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GDTD Podcast, and submit your questions or show ideas to info@gaysdothed.com. Have a great week, everybody. See you real soon.